Before we get started with the video, I have a question for those of you that started playing Monster Hunter with World, Rise, or Wilds. Have you gone back to play any of the games prior to World? And if you did you enjoy your time with it? Would you be excited for a new Monster Hunter game that draws inspiration from a more traditional Monster Hunter experience? Be thinking about those questions as we dive into the topic of this video, Classic Monster Hunter. Hello there, a person who is presumably a Monster Hunter fan. Can I be blunt right off the rip? I love the older, more traditional Monster Hunter games. I began my journey in this series with Generations, the fastest and most streamlined version of classic Monster Hunter. Recently though, I've been playing and creating content for Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, a title that is typically regarded as one of the best old world games. I've had an absolute blast playing through it, and it's helped me realize something. I genuinely, deeply miss classic Monster Hunter. Now, that's not me stating that the newer games are not worth your time, because they absolutely are. Monster Hunter World and Generations Ultimate are constantly trading places at the number 1 and number 2 spots on my list of best Monster Hunter games. However, if we're all honest with ourselves, regardless of what generation of Monster Hunter you started with, it's clear that Capcom has taken the series in a new direction with Wilds. I'll drop the facade of attempting to be eloquent. I'm not expecting this direction to change. As a matter of fact, I think it'll be the opposite. The Monster Hunter team at Capcom have said it themselves that they typically want to look to the future of this series rather than looking back, and aren't too keen on spending time with remakes and remasters, specifically citing the time-consuming challenge of updating the online functionality alongside any other games that could return. This is an understandable blockade, and I'm sure that both the designers and shareholders alike would rather keep their eyes on what comes next for Monster Hunter. But what if there's a way to bring back the feeling of classic Monster Hunter without simply porting HD versions of these games? Not that I would mind that, of course. I want a Monster Hunter that doesn't hold my hand again. I want a Monster Hunter that punishes me for forgetting to take that immensely important item that I needed to complete this quest. Why do I keep forgetting traps? I want a Monster Hunter that sends me out into a quest with an Avengers level threat just walking around for no reason. I want a Monster Hunter with combat that rewards me for proper positioning and intentional attacks, where parries or counters and iframes are earned either through skill or temporarily through hunter arts. So again, how could this be achieved while still looking to the future? Well, I do think it's rather simple. Monster Hunter Classic, just less World of Warcraft Classic, and more old school RuneScape. In the case of Monster Hunter though, this could be a brand new game that looks like a newer, modern game, and yet the gameplay is more of a traditional monster hunting experience. It would be a return to form with combat that's slowed down, yet more intentional, having a properly established village you play through as a rookie hunter, along with some more friction being tossed back into the mix. Friction such as not being able to restock at camps, monster tracking and paintballing being important again, and actually running through maps by not having any mounts. Maybe even turning back the wheel of time to the old skill system. I'm not ashamed to admit I enjoyed this puzzle of a skill system, even if we just used armor builders. As Monster Hunter ascends into the Wilds expansion, I feel this is a natural time to take inventory of what actually comes next. I believe the technical problems of Wilds and the deserved reception that it brought to the game means that the next base game release of Monster Hunter is critical to the health of this series. And I'll tell you right now, Monster Hunter Outlanders is not gonna help. Listen, I am not saying that old Monster Hunter is flat out better than post-world games, or that we just call it a day with straight ports of the older games, even though that would be nice. Instead, why not reintroduce a more traditional Monster Hunter experience with all of the bells and whistles that we would come to expect? It doesn't have to replace anything, since each Monster Hunter game is very much a standalone experience. The Clutch Claw stayed in World, Wire bugs stayed in Rise, and only God Mazios knows what from Wilds is staying behind or not. Are we really gonna have focus mode in every game moving forward? That is why I think it would work really well at this point in the timeline of Monster Hunter to start bringing back the classic feel of these games. Basically, this would mean simply turning down the knob of speed and streamlining that was cranked up with Wilds especially. Not that quality of life is the enemy. I definitely do not want gathering tools such as pickaxes or bug nets to come back. But I mean, dang, you don't have to go back too far to see a dramatic shift in speed. Monster Hunter World feels like a completely different game to Wilds, from quality of life to the amount of movement you have while attacking. What I'm trying to say is that this is rooted more from a critique of Wilds than it is of a New World Monster Hunter. Rise may have been a portable game with an arcadey feel, but it absolutely still upheld certain traditional Monster Hunter principles. I mean, honestly, the amount of movement players have while attacking in Wilds is actually insane when you directly compare it to literally any other game in the series. Focus mode is a part of that, but it's not the whole picture. It's really the extra movement that's baked into so many of the weapons now. I promise that this is not a hate campaign against Wilds. I enjoyed my time with this game, and I'm genuinely looking forward to Ascendance. I just also happen to be looking forward to what Capcom chooses to do next with this beloved series. And I for one hope that they at least take a chance with the style of gameplay that set the foundation of this series for well over a decade. Now, as expected, there's a catch. Not everyone prefers or even enjoys the older Monster Hunter titles or even just the gameplay of those games. I'm sure a player that started with Monster Hunter World or beyond would pick up Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate and need some time to adjust, if not end up dropping it altogether. Trust me though, getting through that initial period of adjustment when trying any of the older games in this series is always worth it. I mean shoot, I experienced that myself earlier this year when I tried out Frontier for the first time. Yo, this game janky, bro. And that's where the proverbial line in the sand needs to be drawn. I mean, can you imagine if underwater combat actually came back? Half of the Monster Hunter player base would feel offended at the sheer mention of it, which honestly I totally understand. Not every Monster Hunter drives with everyone, let alone the older generation of these games. I can also see people thinking of Monster Hunter Classic as a game with the first or second generation as the backbone, with Bullfangos claiming world domination in 2027. Obviously, I'd rather avoid that, so I do think that a mixture of third and fourth generation games would be a fantastic foundation for Capcom to build off of. Not necessarily just porting the combat from these games and then adding another expansion onto it. What I mean is using the gameplay elements, the features, the restrictions, all of which we can expect from an older Monster Hunter title, and expanding upon that, evolving it in ways they haven't before. Maybe mounting can be upgraded into the wyvern riding we got in Rise. What if the Magnet Spike and Tonfas are both brought into this newer, albeit more traditional Monster Hunter game as a way of testing them out? Paintballs would come back, but what if there was a way to upgrade them to last longer, or eventually be something that your Palico could do for you? What if Hunter styles and arts were brought back and expanded upon? What if Prowler mode came back and was properly treated as a weapon instead of a gimmick? So if Capcom were to attempt this, it wouldn't just be going backwards to an older Monster Hunter game. This would be similar to what World of Warcraft Classic or Old School RuneScape have both done with great success, establishing a new timeline for an older version of a beloved game. And that's exactly what I'm thinking. Bring Monster Hunter back a few generations, where Capcom would then create a second timeline in which they evolve that version of the game with a new approach. Again, it doesn't have to be an exact port of an older game. It can be a new game that Capcom creates, but with the spirit of an older Monster Hunter in mind. Or maybe they fully commit to the classic idea and just use the bones of an older game like 4U or GU to create this traditional Monster Hunter. Alright. Why do I think Monster Hunter could see a similar success with the classic version like how WoW or RuneScape has? Well, Monster Hunter may not be an MMO like those two games, but it does have two important qualities: pedigree and consistency. RuneScape was released in 2001, whereas WoW and Monster Hunter were both released in 2004. All three of these games have one powerful thing in common. They identified the fun aspects of their game and nailed it. World of Warcraft is still seen as the king of MMO gameplay and world building. RuneScape perfected the spike of number go up dopamine, and Monster Hunter created an action game where your own skill is what levels up between hunts with a fun reward system of new gear and weapons. And the cherry on top, these are all social games, even if you don't directly play with people at all times. A key difference here would be how niche Monster Hunter was basically up until the launch of Monster Hunter World in 2018, meaning that one could argue that a return to anything before World might not be super popular or well received. Well, to that I'd say this. I'd bet that plenty of the newer Monster Hunter fans haven't been able to even play or access the older games to try it out for themselves. If Capcom do it right and create a blended game that has some quality of life, I can see this working out while exposing newer fans to a more traditional Monster Hunter experience. Speaking of accessibility, that is a true problem here. It's nearly 2027 and it's only getting more difficult to get your hands on the consoles and games needed to even experience the older Monster Hunter titles. I mean, dang, I'm literally playing 4 Ultimate on an emulator because the top screen of my 3DS no longer works, and it's absurd to even consider buying a new one. This issue of availability was also why WoW Classic and Old School RuneScape succeeded. Because with WoW and RuneScape, there literally was no way to play older versions of these games. Vanilla WoW was only accessible through private servers that usually ended up being shut down anyway, and as far as I know, Old School RuneScape had suffered the same fate until official servers had finally released. So while you can technically play some of the older Monster Hunter games online through emulators, nothing compares to the official version of a game. Alright, there's another aspect to this whole proposed classic evolution of Monster Hunter. While Monster Hunter was not a live service game back in the day, it definitely has obtained some live service traits since the release of World with the inception of title updates. Title updates are an entire topic and video in itself, so I'll just say that I'm mostly positive on them. I know mentioning Monster Hunter and the phrase portable team or B team usually tends to rock the foundation of the Monster Hunter community, but this would be a time where the portable team could really cook. I mean, I don't know, maybe this is simply too much to ask of Capcom, expecting them to deliver both a modern version of Monster Hunter alongside a more traditional, less streamlined version in between these modern releases just to appease both crowds. It is interesting though, because the more I learn about it, the more that I see this whole idea is basically Monster Hunter Frontier. It's a shame, because Frontier never officially came to the West and was released way before Monster Hunter evolved into the modernized beast it is today. However, now that Monster Hunter has blown up in popularity, I think it's worth testing out the old Monster Hunter feel with all of the new players that haven't had that experience yet. I think it's only fair to give Old World Monster Hunter and New World fans a chance to interact within a new game. You never know, this could be the next classic or old school boom of a game. Okay, I'll be the first to admit, starting this series with Generations has put my expectations for Monster Hunter in a really weird place. Because Generations and GU were both games that bridged the old and New World games amazingly, and I long for an experience like that. Do you all remember what game came out in the middle of World and Iceborne? It was Generations Ultimate. This beauty of a game released right smack dab in the middle, between World and its expansion. That period of Monster Hunter is still one of my favorites to this day. What if Capcom could recreate that? Would a jump between a modernized and traditional experience between games be that impossible or debilitating to Monster Hunter? Because if we stay on the track that's been laid by Wilds, we're gonna be flying around with a jetpack, hunting Rathalos in the sky. This whole idea is a long shot and probably not one that Capcom would have the balls to attempt. But if MapleStory can kind of do a classic version, why can't Monster Hunter? I'll end this video with this. Like I mentioned, I've been playing 4 Ultimate recently on the channel here and creating videos about my experience. I'm only just starting high rank in the caravan and it has blown me away. Again, I do enjoy Wilds as a game. Unfortunately though, going back to the gem that is 4 Ultimate has somewhat tainted my view of Wilds, as well as the possible future of Monster Hunter as a whole. I really am keen to see what Capcom does through Ascendance, and yet I find myself just expecting a fun, actiony game, and not necessarily the Monster Hunter that I've come to love over the years. While a Monster Hunter classic done in the same vein as World of Warcraft wouldn't make any sense, a new game created with the spirit of classic Monster Hunter would hit hard, especially after Wilds. How would you feel if Capcom brought Monster Hunter back to its roots, even if slightly? Would you be interested in that, or do you think that's a waste of their time and resources? I'd love to read it all in the comments. If you haven't played a Monster Hunter game pre-World, I implore you to dive into 3 Ultimate, 4 Ultimate, or Generations Ultimate, or really whichever one you can access easily. Thank you for checking out this video, and don't worry, the next episode of Operation Mongoose is of course in the works. If you're new here, I would give that 4 Ultimate series a look. I've been struck by fluency, and I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.